His great love. His great love that came out to meet you. Of His great love that's been coming through. Of His great love that's been coming out to entreat you. Of His love that's been coming through. Can be your love or my love. Can be His love or...
Shalom, I am Rabbi Shaul Praver. You're watching Rabbi Rock. Many people complain that Muslims don't protest. They don't rally in the streets against terrorism. And they're very concerned about that. But my friends, Arabs that live in the Middle East do not live in a free society. They cannot speak their views freely unless they would be killed for it or persecuted in some way. So there is a KGB style of fear in Arab totalitarian regimes today. And we must understand that when we voice our protest over them not making their voices heard. And furthermore, there are Muslims here in the United States that are very brave and do speak out very loud and have a lot to say. And I haven't heard many Americans recognize that. I've only heard the claim that Muslims never speak out. And we have to recognize and realize the courage that these Muslims have that are speaking out. And one of these people is a guest here today. Her name is Ms. Nonie Darwish. And she is the founder of an organization called Arabs for Israel, a very provocative title. And she is also a presenter in the movie Obsession, and a very, very smart, fascinating woman. We welcome Nonie Darwish. We had several questions to ask her.
Islam is the most foolproof system of manipulation.
Is it fair to compare militant Islam with Nazism?
Because in the Nazis, the leader was not a god. He was a human being. If he dies, it's over. But in Islam, it's God. So the leaders are using Islam, which is the most perfect system by God, which is a perfect, permanent system of total dictatorship.
You recently went to Egypt again. Can you tell us about it?
I went to visit Egypt with my family in the summer of 2001, right before 9/11. And I was ready to go hug the people in the airport. I missed my country. And when I landed with my husband, the officer who was taking our passport, he gave us a dirty look, my husband and me, because he realized, here she is, she's not covering her head and she's marrying an American. And from the first hour I was there, I noticed Egypt has changed. Women in Egypt didn't cover their heads when I left Egypt. They were modest but Western in the way they dressed. Only the peasants wear head cover. Because of the sun, they work in the fields. It was more traditional than religious, really. And I noticed Islamic radical Islam has taken over. The streets of Cairo had, I could see mosques called King Fahd Mosque. This prince that I knew right away, this was donations from Saudi Arabia. Men were growing beards and women covered up. Even the face sometimes is completely covered up. You don't even know what's behind that. I saw a lot of angry people blaming Israel for everything again. blaming America, unemployment, mismanagement, just anger. And I sat with some young people and to talk with them and see what their opinions are. And they were just extremely cruel about Kuwait. They were on the side of Iraq against Kuwait, even though Iraq was the aggressor. And they were extremely anti-American, even though when I left in the early 70s, Nixon visited Egypt. And there was a lot of good feelings about America at that time. And but at the end of the conversation with these young Egyptians, a couple of them came to tell me, "Oh, how do we get the visa to America?" So how they act, what they said didn't make sense to me. And the newspapers, when I opened Egyptian newspapers, all I read was anti-America, anti-Israel bashing. I didn't see the problems of society reflected in the media. The problems of Muslim Egyptian society, the economy, the unemployment, the pollution around the Nile. And we came home and 9/11 happened the next morning. I woke up and I saw the Twin Towers in flames. And I just immediately knew this is the jihad I left behind. This is the anger I left behind. This is the culture of martyrdom. I was devastated. I knew that jihad has come to America. And a few days later, I called a lot of people in Egypt because I really wanted to know what's the public opinion there. I really expected people were going to tell me, no, this is the point that they crossed. We do not accept that. Or no, 9/11, we have to really review how this came out of our culture, at least. Each and every person I called told me the same thing. How dare you even accuse the Arabs that did it? Don't you know this is a Zionist conspiracy? I hung up the phone and I cried. I felt I was totally disconnected from my culture. They were not seeing the truth anymore. I mean, I was on TV looking at Muhammad Atta, who's from Cairo, coming on the airplane, followed by the other Saudi guy. And everybody knows that it's Arabs who did it, but the people in the Arab world are denying it. So, to me, I felt, this is unbelievable. They don't want to see reality. They are total denial. And they actually were some of them were very angry at me. And out of frustration, I went and wrote an article against terrorism. And that's how I started speaking out of frustration.
Shortly after 9/11, you spoke to the Hadassah women, and you described it as a very moving experience. Can you tell us about that speech and how you were received?
Yeah, it was my first speech to a Jewish group. And just to describe to you my feelings, I went in and most everybody was more of a senior citizen, so 2 of them were Holocaust survivors. And as I was speaking to them, I saw tears in one of the ladies' eyes in front of me. And at that time I was very scared of speaking. I wasn't an expert of a speaker. And I started crying in front of everybody. And I started speaking about Israel, and while I'm speaking, I'm looking at the people. And as much as I'm impacting them with my words, they were impacting me.